Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today I'm talking about the third album from Kraftwerk, Ralf und Florian. So, okay, if you saw the review I posted of Kraftwerk's first two albums the other day, you'd know that I personally felt they were not that great. To me, they came off as, like, tests or studies more than anything else. Them trying to figure out their sound, playing with equipment, but not making particularly enjoyable music. But as one guy on Discogs put it, if Kraftwerk and Kraftwerk 2 were studies, then their third album, Ralf and Florian, is their final exam. In my opinion, this is the point at which Kraftwerk really started to find their sound and is a huge step upwards in pure enjoyability. They weren't just making musical tests, now they were making actual music. Now granted, that experimental nature hasn't gone away. There are definitely moments on this album that still kind of feel like tests a little bit, and it's not like an absolute masterpiece. I mean, compared to a lot of their later stuff, this is pretty simplistic. But this is the first Kraftwerk album that I would really go out of my way to recommend. For anyone planning on going through Kraftwerk chronologically, I did say the first two were pretty awful places to start, but this could be a good entry point. Granted, I personally kind of went into Kraftwerk backwards. Like, when I was little and looking through the iTunes store, they didn't have much of anything available earlier than Computer World. And nowadays, like, you can fairly easily find anything Autobahn or later. Though, unfortunately, they don't seem to hold this album in very high regard, and it hasn't ever been remastered yet, or made easily available since it came out in 1973. Also, as such, I heard this album a lot later than most of the other ones, and it has less nostalgia. But I still say it is worth seeking out. This is where Kraftwerk actually started to incorporate synthesizers into their music. I mean, they hadn't gone full 100% synthesizers yet. I don't think they did that until Radioactivity? Maybe? But they were focusing more on that electronic sound they'd become known for. On top of that, you know how I said that Klang was the point at which they'd actually started to sound like Kraftwerk and was a pretty good song by itself? Really though, that track is still rather prototypical compared to this album. Kling was basically 3 decent tracks jammed together in one, and is pretty simplistic, all things considered, and not very catchy, despite being quite pleasant to listen to. I could not hum you any of the melodies in Kling if I tried, but that's not the case here. Several of these tracks are almost earworm-like and show the real appeal of Kraftwerk finally showing up. Not all of them, but the ones that don't stick in your head at least have interesting ideas or cool sounds to keep you from getting bored or wanting to listen to something else. There is quite a fair bit to unpack here, so there's 6 tracks on this album, not tied together by any concept or anything, but still all pretty memorable and unique in their own right. The first track, Elektrisches Roulette. By the way, I apologize in advance for the German pronunciations. I mean, I think I'm closer to these because I actually did used to speak German when I was little, and I grew up in a primarily German family, but like, my German has definitely deteriorated over the years. So like, I kind of have an idea of how to say it, but my mouth doesn't always work as we always have known, but I digress. First track, Elektrisches Roulette, or Electric Roulette, starts out subtle with a bunch of wavering synths that kind of sound like a machine starting up, before this lively and actually quite catchy track starts up. I think it lives up to its title pretty well. Sounds like the kind of music you'd hear out of some kind of old-fashioned pinball machine or something like that. I mean, it's not all synths, mind you. There's some guitars and what sounds like a violin in one little section, as well as these little, electronic drums or something that go every now and then. And of course, this melody is undoubtedly one of the catchiest ones on this album. I will admit I got a little sick of this one with enough repeat listens, but I still think it's a good track and a fun way to open up the album, and also introduce to the world what Kraftwerk is all about, even if this one is a bit gimmicky. The second track, Tongebirge. Tongebirge. English, Mountain of Sound. It's kind of like some, like, abstract flute piece. There's some synths here and there, but it's mainly like layers upon layers of flutes ascending and descending in quite a beautiful and whimsical fashion. I think it might borrow a tiny bit from Ruckzuck from their first album. That track is catchier, but it did get kind of annoying with too many repeat listens. This track is too abstract to stick in your head, but it sounds better in my opinion, and I'd never actually skip it. Really nice track there. Anyway, Kristallo, aka Krystals, is track 3, and this track is one of the most indicative of Kraftwerk's later sound. It's quite dark sounding, with these dark filtered synth bass lines that are even further filtered with a vocoder, like some kind of percussive sound that sets up a steady beat in the background, as well as some chilling and almost gothic-sounding synth playing layered on top of it all. The track is pretty abstract for the most parts. The keyboards are kind of freeform, aside from some riffs at the beginning that are actually pretty catchy. But like, there's a part where the track fakes you out by fading out completely and then fading back in, but like playing in reverse. And then suddenly switching over to this really fast and up-tempo section made of all the same sounds. Before ending with another little reversed section. Really cool song there. Definitely one of my favorites. Then there's Heimatklänge, aka The Bells of Home. This track is somewhat similar to Tongebirge in that it has a lot of layered flutes and is more abstract than catchy. But it is a pretty big personal favorite of mine, mainly thanks to their use of the piano. Gives this track a sort of nostalgic vibe that I think really pushes it further for me. Sounds absolutely fantastic. I don't have a lot to say about it, and like it is probably the least electronic track on here, but I definitely really like this track. But my favorite track on the album overall, perhaps unsurprisingly, is Tanzmusik. Undoubtedly the most indicative of Kraftwerk's overall sound, this track does sound kind of similar to Klang, but it's way catchier. You got these repetitive melodies with these kind of like choir-y vocals. Well, not really choir, because since I'm pretty sure it's just Ralf and or Florian singing, but like it does kind of have this weird Brian Wilson quality to their voices, placed neatly in the background so as not to call too much attention to themselves, but add to the atmosphere. And they also do some hand clapping as well, and there's like these little sparkly glockenspiel sounds too, just to give it that brighter and more whimsical vibe to it. It's just a fantastic track overall. And that leaves the final track, Ananas Symphony, aka Pineapple Symphony. I got kind of mixed feelings on this track. It's the longest one, it's 13 minutes. It's the most abstract. It's also one of the most ambient tracks they've done. It is perhaps, unfortunately, the track on here that I return to the least. It's probably the least accessible or immediately engaging track on here. But that's not to say it's not interesting or has nothing to recommend it. As you would guess from the title, it does have an interesting tropical feel to it, with these sort of Hawaiian-esque guitars and imitations of beach sounds in one section. It also features their first use of the vocoder on their own voices, which is used to say the title of the track in the very beginning. And even if it is rather abstract and almost kind of demo-like, unlike the aimless guitar pieces from the back half of Kraftwerk 2, it feels like it actually has a point to it. It is quite relaxing, and it feels like they do actually kind of have an artistic vision here. And it does live up to its name, really the kind of track that makes you feel like you're lying back on one of those pool deck chairs next to the beach. Even if I don't listen to it all the way through, I do enjoy listening to it whenever I actually do. Changes up its sound just enough to stay interesting and justify the 13 minutes that it lasts. So yeah, I think that covers just about everything. Overall, even though this is still a stepping stone towards Kraftwerk really finding their sound and style, and in many areas they do still sound like they're two guys screwing around their tiny little studio rather than just a full band yet, and obviously there's not as much nostalgia here as some of their others. I think it is the earliest point at which they really nailed it down and actually made highly enjoyable music. There isn't a single bad track in the bunch. I've had such a hard time figuring out what might be a least favorite that I don't think I can honestly pick one. While they had yet to truly reach their full potential here, this album does have a lot to like about it. I still see myself returning to it more in the future, and I can undoubtedly give it my full-on recommendation. I'm overall feeling a 7.7 out of 10. But of course, this is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.